take this opportunity to thank the people for being here. I appreciate that, and members of the public, I appreciate you being here. If we could start with the roll call, and we can start over here to my right.
Rob Shallow, Hebron.
Judy Benson Clark, Marlborough.
Sue Brackley, Marlborough.
Amy Tomadio, Hebron.
Stephanie Bancroft, Andover.
Kathleen Goodwin, Hebron.
Pat Law, Superintendent, Region 8.
Karen D. Carletto, Board Clerk.
Let's stand in the pledge of allegiance while we're over here.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on the agenda to public comments. Does anybody want to have public comment? Okay, seeing none, I guess we're going to just move right into the discussion of possible action regarding the 2019-2020 proposed budget. And I'll hand it over to our superintendent, Dr. Law, for the response to the Board of Ed questions, which it appears there's a PowerPoint.
So I did provide these ahead of time for the board, so I'm hoping you were able to look them over. These are response to the different questions that either happened at the last board meeting or during the past week. So one was just about the enrollment numbers of the 3 towns, and you do have an updated budget sheet to add to your budget book. What we found on the original pull date from Power School on 1/28 was that we had 2 different discrepancies. One is that the demographic screens for some students who had moved within the 3 towns had not been changed on both demographic screens in Power School. So we changed it on one, but it didn't get changed on the one that we used to pull the state data. So, for example, if a student lived in Hebron, but in the past year moved to Marlborough, we changed the information in Power School on the one screen, but not on the other demographic screen. The one that didn't change still pulled the data from the old district. So we had to change those over. We caught those, and we also changed the October 1st pull information to the state. The other thing that did not pull when we did this is we had changed the way we were accounting for our out-of-district students in Power School. None of the numbers for the out-of-district students pulled on the October 1st pull for the data on 1/28, so we had to make sure that those pulled as well. So you will see that the original had Andover at 232 students, it's now 236. Hebron was 714, it's now 734. Marlborough was 485 and stayed at 485. The question about the technology, are we proposing $300,000 annually or $300,000 over 5 years, which is $60,000 per year? We are expecting that we would like to be able to lease over $60,000 each year over 5 years, which results in approximately $300,000 in purchasing power each year. If you look down at the chart on the very last line, what we're looking at is the last 2 lines. The total budget line, for example, for 1920 would be $214,000, but it would actually provide us with an expenditure amount of about $300,000. And what we're looking to do is to just even out the way that we've been leasing our IT equipment. And it is about and then there was a question about the replacement cycle versus the lease cycle. The lease cycle is going to be over a 5-year lease. The money, so you see the $60,000 in red, it's over 5 years. The replacement cycle for the Chromebooks is going to move from 4 years to 3 years. So we're talking 2 different cycles of information there. And luckily for you tonight, if you have even further questions, Scott Butson's one of the presenters tonight, so you can ask him even more questions about that if you'd like to. But we worked on this together, so that's that information, and I don't know if you have any questions about that, and he can certainly follow up on his presentation as well. So now we got the replacement cycle for the Chromebooks. What would this look like? So this year, we had ninth graders get the Chromebooks this year. What we're looking to do, and 11th graders, it would be year 2 next year for 1920. Starting in 1920, what we're looking to do is in 7th grade and in 10th grade is when we would give the students new Chromebooks. So if you follow the blue grade 7, that's going to be year 1, they have their Chromebook. 8th graders, they'll be 8th graders in 2020-21, 9th graders in 21-22. Then that Chromebook is done because we're going to a 3-year replacement cycle, if you remember. There'll be 10th graders again in 22-23, that's where they'll get a new one. 23-24, they'll get one. They'll end as 12th graders in the 3-year cycle part. So it really matches the timeline that they're in school and how we're replacing the Chromebooks. And that's an example of what it would look like. Oh, sorry. So now we go to Chromebook insurance. And there's a lot of just information on this slide that we use to make decisions around what we want like to do with insurance. So first of all, we're looking at just how many incidents of repair do we have in any given year, whether it's screen cracking, which is very common, keys falling off, it won't turn on, the battery keeps failing, whatever. There's all kinds of different things. We track each and every one of those incidents. So in 17-18, we had approximately 300 repair incidents. So far this year, we've had 253 of them. When you look at the number of students that are actually buying insurance, you only have, out of the approximate 1,500 students in the building over the last 2 years, we only have 250 this year and 231 last year. Part of what we struggle with is that we have a lot of repairs, most of which are not for anything that the students have done wrong with the machines. There's some sort of an issue, things accidentally break. But we don't have a lot of students buying insurance. When there are issues where we need to recoup money for repairs, we struggle with the billing process and the recouping of any money process. So we're really not getting, and we're not getting money back for the repairs that we're doing. We only have a few students that are actually purchasing the insurance. And we're ending up paying for a lot of it out of pocket anyhow, or out of budget anyhow. So we have looked at all this information and said it just makes sense for us to then shift to a Chromebook lease that would allow us to have a 3-year warranty and a 3-year accidental insurance. So currently we pay approximately $260 per Chromebook. We're budgeting $327 per Chromebook starting next year. And that new warranty, that new Chromebook lease would provide us with a 3-year warranty and a 3-year accidental insurance coverage for those computers. So that would be grade 7 and 10. So we would be phasing out the insurance offer because every time we would get the new Chromebooks in grade 7, 10, they would come with this new warranty. So in 1920, grades 9, 11, and 12 would still be able to purchase the insurance because grades 7 and 10 are getting the new Chromebooks with the 3-year warranty and the 3-year insurance. 2021, 9 and 12 would still be able to purchase the insurance. 21, 22, 9th grade would purchase it. By 22, 23, we will have phased out the insurance. I think cost effectiveness wise, it makes more sense for the district.
Thank you for researching that. That makes sense.
That's a good question.
Yep.
Does this include the breaking of the screen, these warranties?
So it does if it's accidental. So we have had a few students that have, not by accident, broken their computers, and those ones we would not be able to cover with this, and we would bill them for the full cost of replacing the Chromebook, should it not be an accident.
Bill the student.
Bill the student.
Thank you.
Yep. There was a question about how many administrators, both within the buildings and within central office, in similar sized districts to ours. So I did not necessarily stay within just the DIRG, But looking at, so here's our information, as far as our enrollment numbers and the number of administrators at the middle school, enrollment numbers, number of administrators at the high school, and central office. And I did do some abbreviations to get all the information in there. But primarily what we find in this information is that many of the districts that are even smaller than us or similar size to us have similar size, if not more, central office employees, and certainly have the same number of assistant principals and principals within the middle school and the high school. The data that's not up there, but data that I did find, is that primarily it's around the 500 enrollment number where the high school, where several high schools go down to one assistant principal. Again, you have to remember, it's the assistant principals that are the main contact people with all of the students. So you're talking a 1 to 480, 500 student ratio there. And we want to make sure that we're providing students with personalized feedback and needs being met. And so my recommendation is that we continue to keep the staffing that we have administratively and not make any changes at this point.
Thank you for getting that information too. I had community members ask me that, and I think I've been, have publicly said that I think administrators are important or are hard to even measure what they do. So this is good if we could even make this available somewhere for people who have that question.
All of these PowerPoints are posted.
Perfect.
Okay, the athletic directors splitting their time between middle school and high school. So as far as this goes, and I've spoken with a friend of mine who is an athletic director, actually used to work with me, and in a larger district than ours. And primarily there's a lot that just happens within this process. So the athletic director is primarily guided by CIAC rules, which guide high school athletics. So there's very clear guidelines in CIAC about what athletic directors need to do at the high school level. Middle school is not guided by that. So the athletic director first has to check and make sure that they're following CIAC guidelines for coverage at the high school level. They work with administrators. We already right now hire people to help to cover events, and we would continue to do that. And they're going to work with other teams and other districts and other athletic directors to make sure that the events that have to be covered are covered. The events that we think need to be covered, whether there's going to be a large crowd or whatever, that there's at least an athletic director from one of the two schools there. And that's what they do. They work on all of that. So there's a lot of scheduling and communication that has to happen within the district and across the different towns and the different teams and different athletic directors in order to cover all this. But this is what they are trained to do, and this is why they have these positions that allow a single person to be the athletic director for an entire district. And it's just something that will evolve. The door monitor. And just looking in general about the security plan and SRO and a variety of different questions there. So again, I've stated this already, that the school at 3:30 is unlocked because office personnel leave both the offices and can no longer buzz people in. I strongly feel as though it is unsafe to have the building unlocked with access to the entire community from 3:30 to 11 o'clock at night, with nobody actually overseeing who's coming into the building. So much like I know Hebron Elementary have done, locking down the building after school hours is important. By having a door monitor who would be the person, and after school hours, you would be coming to the gym auditorium door, the area where we have the most events. They would be the person who would be at the door, opening the door for people to come in. They would have a list of what are the events that night. Again, they're not going to be able to, they're not going to check everybody, check bags and all that, but they're going to be the person that will allow people in and allow for at least flow to be able to say, what event are you here for, what event are you here for, okay, it's over here, it's over here. And just monitoring the fact that we don't just have free flow of people walking into the building. There would also be a buzzer system put into what is currently the SRO office, so that if it's like a one event night and there's not a lot going on, they could buzz somebody from there if they're not standing at the door, because the flow of people is every 20 minutes or so, they're not just gonna stand there. So as far as how are we going to deal with the fact that we sometimes are going to have events happening in the building that, maybe down at the middle school, there was a concern, what about how am I gonna get in? Much like they are required now, Hebron Parks and Rec, when they rent Hebron Elementary, are required to have somebody that monitors the door to let parents in. It would be the same expectation in our building for that group or other groups. If there's going to be a need for them to be able to have a lot of monitoring of people being able to get into the building, that would be an expectation that we would have as part of our use of facilities form when they rent the building, that they need to be able to provide somebody that's going to help to monitor the doors as well. So that is how that would be covered. Organizations that would consistently be renting the building would also have the ability to have a specifically timed fob that would allow them into the building at the times that they'd be renting it, so they can at least get into the building and open it up as an organization.
You said before, organization, I didn't understand that.
I'm sorry.
I don't know, something about, it's what you said before, the organizations had the fob. I didn't understand it, that's why I can ask the question. Does anybody remember?
The middle school access?
Yeah.
So, right now at Hebron Elementary, for example, what I know is that Hebron Elementary, when Hebron Parks and Rec rents the building, they're required to have somebody on their staff that monitors the door. We would have the same expectation, they're the primary renters at the middle school. We would have the same expectation if they would do that, as well as any other group that was gonna be renting it that needed to be able to have access throughout the time that they are renting the building.
Okay, so like a dance groups hold things there, so they'd be.
The dance groups are up at the high school, and that would be something where the door monitor would have to do that,
Okay,
depending on
okay,
how
thank
large
you.
the group event is. We would have to discuss that with the
Thank
dance
you,
company.
that makes sense.
As far as part of the security plan and the SRO creating the security plan, our security plan was updated this year. I did the updating of the plan, although it was run by the SRO, the state police, the fire marshal, all those people, they all have seen it. We will update the security plan annually, and if these are the types of things that we're making changes as a district, that would be added to the security plan at that time.
I think we want to research the Hebronell thing a little bit more.
Okay.
Because I know when I go in, that Parks and Rec is, they are there to open the door, but I don't know that they monitor, I think they're in charge of, and I'm not clear about it. I know I go in and out of that building often,
Mhm.
but I don't know that I've been checked. But I do agree with you that there needs to be some sort of security. I think that is true, that you just can't have people wandering around either the middle of the high school all the time. I think that is an issue, especially nowadays. I'm not quite sure how we would do that, though. I think you're trying to problem solve that, and I'm not quite sure.
Well, I don't know that this is gonna stop people wandering. This isn't
Yeah.
gonna stop people wandering, this is gonna stop people from having easy access to the building. So we're trying to deal with two different problems.
Yeah.
The wandering problem, I'm hoping will be addressed through the security grant that I wrote, that I'm hoping that we'll get from the state. That will help us to create other types of solutions to the wandering problem. But one thing at a time right now, my biggest concern is that the building is open and has open access. It's
Yeah.
just not, it's not a safe thing to have. Yes.
Will there be camera access for the security person in the SRO office, so they can monitor the points of access? If they're gonna be sitting, if they're sitting in the office and they're buzzing people in, are they gonna have a camera? I know that there's a camera.
There's a camera on the buzzer that would
It's
allow
usually
them
up
to see
front.
the person. Whatever buzzer we put in there, we have the same camera on it as all the other buzzers do,
Okay, great.
to allow them to be able to see who's at the door.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yep.
I was wondering. Did anyone else? Okay, Judy.
Yeah, I guess I'm unclear, but we just had a tiny conversation. If wandering happens to be kids, and I don't know if it is or isn't kids who are wandering, I would just hope that we would think about a safe alternative, because when they're wandering the building, they're most likely or hopefully not drinking or doing drugs or something bad. So just, looking, I know we think about SEL and everything just holistically. I know that's not for right now, but just as a.
Absolutely. The 10% increase for insurance is a solid number. It's based on our rolling 12-month claims and is from Anthem based on our actual plans as a district. We continue to meet monthly with Anthem at our insurance consortium meetings, but right now that is the firm number that we've been given. Okay, this is math. This is fun math. I think I've probably, parentheses first, so don't even go there. Do not evaluate my equation. So the way that the spreadsheet came through on in the budget book first, it had the 0.5 nurse position as an add there, where it really should be within the paraprofessional. It shifted down the line. So we're not adding anybody, it's just a shifting and a moving of people. So we took the 0.5 paraprofessional and moved them to the 0.5 administrative assistant in the main office. It's a single person. We're just splitting what they're doing. Half the time we need them as a para, half the time we need them as an administrative assistant. So when we add in the 1.0 school security person as a paraprofessional, that line item is only showing a 0.5 increase because it's the math in the book. Do you want me to show you the math in the book, or you're good on this one? Because we're not. It's just adding the 1.0 person, but it's minus the 0.5 of the other person that we moved. The question was about the calculation for the special education students on page. I forget what page it was on, but it was originally 39. It was calculated 41. It was just we did not have the right numbers in the book as we were putting them through it. There was no impact on the budget. It is correct now in the updated budget book that you were given. We also, it said in that same area where there was verbiage around the out-of-district transition, we took out the words out-of-district since we're going to continue to, in our first year, to have it in district. It will be at the high school year 1 with the plan of moving it off-site in year 2, but really launching it with a lot of support in the building next year.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yep.
So is the 9,600 coming out now?
It is. It did. When I redid the budget sheet, the 9,600 went out. Okay. Why are we not seal coating the parking lots? A couple of things. One, we have the DOT project happening this year, and there will be a lot of work that's going to be happening within the parking lots. As you know, the actual amount of capital projects that were recommended for this year was close to $1.4 million. At some point, there has to be a prioritization and a figuring of where is our bottom dollar need to be spent on the most important projects. Myself and the director of facilities felt firmly that seal coating the parking lots is something that could wait. It's not a priority, and so we did not prioritize it. And it will be pushed off as other things have been and will be in the past when they're not addressed in the year that they're scheduled for or hoped for. We will push them off, so the seal coating will push off to someplace else in the 10-year plan.
Questions about that?
Okay. The IDEA grant. First of all, just to clarify that in the budget book, all of the information about the grants can be found on pages 41 and 42 with a little bit about the purpose behind the grant, as well as the amounts that we are expecting. Last year when so IDEA is an entitlement grant. And again, as a reminder, it has to support, not supplant our local funding. In the IDEA grant over time have been we've had the PT salaries, paras, social worker, a variety of services in service, additional transportation, supplies, technology, hardware, tutors, and teacher. The IDEA grant we apply for every year, and we get a 2-year grant. It really should not be considered or looked at as revenue because it is something that we actually have to spend down each year or we do not get the money. It is meant to support above and beyond what we're trying to do as a district. So all these salaries and other things that are in here, should that money go away, we either have to remove those positions or we have to find a way to pay for them ourselves. When you talk about the way that the salaries for the people in the IDEA grant are calculated in the budget, the salaries are calculated such that, for example, if I'm a teacher and half of my salary is paid by IDEA and I make $50,000 a year, I am budgeted in the budget book under salaries at $50,000, or excuse me, at $25,000, and $25,000 is paid for out of IDEA. We don't get the money, or we don't spend that down that year, we don't get the money. We do not get that entitlement from the state, from the federal government. So when we put it in as a revenue to offset, it really is not the best practice for how we should have been demonstrating that money as part of what our revenues are. And we are not going to put any of the grants other than excess cost right now, and with feedback from the auditor, we might be talking with the board about that at our March meeting, how we're actually calculating that on that sheet. You do have all of the grant information in here. It is shared with you. It is appropriately what we're expecting. It is explained to you, but it does not belong in that revenue sheet as a line item to offset the budget as a whole. So we have removed that from there, and we'll hold it as a part of what's in the budget and budget appropriately, like I said, for those salaries within the budget book itself.
Can you say that again? You said you put excess cost in here, though?
Excess cost is in this sheet. It's
So
been
it's
on this
not-
revenue sheet. And I just read the first draft of our audit report, which I haven't been able to finish or meet with the auditor yet. But there might be some recommendations or questions around how we are accounting for excess cost as a revenue as well. So that, again, is the one grant that is in there that we might want to be taking a look at moving forward. So just more to come on that one, but the best practice, even from the auditors, is that we're not doing that. We're not having the IDEA, in that line item in here as a revenue. It belongs as a separate section.
I don't want to ask it now because I looked at things. I don't disagree with that. And I know we have 2 chairs from the Finance Committee. Is that something, or is it better to go to March? That would be like a Finance Committee, because I know one of our chairs, Mrs. Goodwin, has asked a lot of questions about IDEA and funding, and just so we completely understand what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing by any stretch, but just so we understand the monies that are coming in and kind of maybe how we've met maintenance of effort on the grants that we're obligated to meet. It might just be helpful, is what I'm
So we
thinking.
can do that at the finance subcommittee?
Okay.
Yes.
I think so.
Okay.
A good point that the maintenance of effort, we have to have a continual maintenance of effort in our local funding in order to actually even secure the entitlement grants. And so what does that look like? And we can have that as a topic in there. This was either just little corrections around line items that were in the personnel budget. Line 155 is for the new athletic director salary and the director of accounting, technology, and facilities. The increase is due to the new AD position in that area. And the district is done paying off the previous superintendent in 21-22. Just the wording issue on line item 260, page 45. It was a decrease, and the wording had not been changed from the year previous. Okay. There's a lot to this one. So there's an increase for line item 300 in purchase professional services. The increase is $294,000. And so in the budget book, what is covered in that line is on page 27 specific to special education, and on page 47 in relation to the budget as a whole. The sub-nurse service in the past was in the personnel budget, but it's not a personnel, it's not somebody we hire. It's a purchase service. We hire a company. So that was one thing that we moved out of personnel and into purchase services at a move of $8,000. There was a question around, we do have a substitute nurse that is a purchase service through the company. The amount of the nurse was $16,240 per student. There are other nursing services for other students that are also in there, but this is specific to a single nurse for a single student in that question. Other special education services that are in there are our BCBA, our behavioral specialists, physical therapy, one-to-one paras for off-site placements, and other special education services are in that line item. The overall portion of this line item that is special education is $656,000. And just as a note, the BCBA had been pulled out of that line last year as we were budgeting, because we had the hopes that we were going to be able to hire one. Could not find one to hire, so we switched it and we moved it back out of salary and into purchase services and continued with our contracted service for that line. Oops, sorry, skip one. Sport, okay. As far as everything with the sports officials and the budgeting for all of that, that was based specifically on the athletic directors giving me the numbers and what they need. What we did find is that every year we budget for the possibility of teams also going to playoffs because you have to pay for those officials. We also are adding 3 freshman sports teams this year. That was also included in there. And what we have done is made sure that we're looking at past expenditures in this line item and had the conversations with the athletic directors to make the reductions that you haven't been spending what you've been budgeting for in the past, so you need to really take a look at that. We've looked at it historically. The number that is being budgeted is an appropriate number based on the additions of the new things and looking at past spending on sports officials in this line item. So I have not made cuts. What we've done is we've budgeted appropriately.